Hello, it's April from April's Home, and today I'm here to share with you some recipes using canned tuna. Canned tuna is a pantry staple. It's a wonderful budget-friendly item that can be stretched and used in so many ways for wonderful recipes. Most people have a hard time thinking beyond the tuna sandwich or the tuna casserole. So I thought that in this video I would share 4 different tuna recipes that you can try out. This will be a wonderful way to rotate in the tuna that we've stored up in our pantries, as well as really good, wonderful, budget-friendly meals. Of course, tuna sandwiches and tuna casseroles are wonderful. I love tuna casserole. It's a great meal to serve. And of course, a classic. I will link below my recipe for tuna casserole. I have a wonderful and very easy recipe for tuna casserole that I've shared before. And in this video, as well as the 4 recipes, I will go ahead and share with you one of my favorite ways to make a tuna sandwich. A grilled tuna sandwich. So I'll be sharing that later on in this video. But now let's go ahead and head into the kitchen for our first recipe. So for my first tuna recipe that I'll be sharing, I'm going to share a classic tuna recipe, and this is creamed tuna over toast. So what you will need for this recipe is, of course, a can of tuna. You'll need about half a bag of frozen green peas. You'll need 2 cups of milk. You'll need half a cup of flour, half a stick of butter. You'll need some onion powder, parsley, salt and pepper, and you'll need some bread to make toast. So the first thing I'm going to do is to make a white sauce using my milk and flour and butter. So I'm going to start by melting half a stick of butter in my pan. Okay, so here I'm melting a half a stick of butter, and when this is almost all the way melted, I will be adding to this half a cup of flour. And with a whisk, I'll be stirring that together to make a roux. Today I do not have a silicone covered whisk here, so I'm just going to whisk carefully. Normally I'd be whisking in a pan that wasn't non-stick, but with this recipe I thought I would go ahead and use a non-stick pan just for the ease of it. So I'll just be careful not to scrape the bottom of my pan. So we're going to go ahead and let that melt up, and I'll come back when we're ready to add the flour. Also, while my butter is melting, I'm going to go ahead and open my can of tuna and drain it. That way it'll be all ready to incorporate into our sauce. So my butter has melted, and I've turned the heat down a little bit so it'll stop boiling here. And I'm going to add my half cup of flour to the butter. And I'm going to whisk this together here until it forms sort of a paste. I'm going to let that cook for about a minute or so. So here it is, all the flour and butter combined, and I just like to kind of gently move this around while it cooks away, again for about a minute or so. It's just to take away some of that floury taste. Gives it a nice flavor if you give the flour and butter mixture just a little bit of time to cook a bit. I might have added just a hair more flour than a half a cup. If you add closer to a half a cup, it will be a little bit more moist here, but this should be okay. Okay, so we've got our flour and butter mixture cooking away, and in just a minute we're going to go ahead and add the milk to this, and when we add the milk we'll start whisking right away. Okay, I'm going to go ahead now and add about half of my milk. It's nice and slowly there. And then I'm going to go ahead and incorporate this together. You want to whisk this until it's nice and smooth and there's no more lumps. Just kind of press it down with the whisk here. It's thickening up really nicely. I'm going to go ahead now and add the rest of my milk. I'm just going to keep stirring this around, kind of breaking up those clumps and keeping it moving until it thickens like a gravy. When it starts to thicken, we'll go ahead and add the rest of our ingredients. But we really want to make sure to get all of these flour clumps incorporated to thicken the milk here. So I've switched over to this little whisk. This is one of my favorite little flat whisks. This will help break up some of those clumps in there and just incorporate the butter and flour mixture into the milk. But you can see it's thickening really nicely here, and as this heats up and I continue whisking, that should turn nice and smooth. But while we're going ahead and letting this heat up a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and season it now. So I just season this according to personal taste. I do not like a lot of salt, but you definitely want some. Let's start with about that much there. It's probably only like half a teaspoon. And again, you'll want to taste the sauce and add more or less to your liking. So I always like to start out small because you can always add more later. I love pepper in my white sauce. It adds a lot of nice flavor. So I'm just sprinkling it liberally there. A lot of people don't use onion powder in their white sauce, but I like to. I just like to give it a little dash of onion powder for extra yummy flavor. And then for color, and also a little bit of flavor, some parsley flakes. Just like to be pretty generous there as well. It's probably like a tablespoon, a rounded tablespoon. So let's go ahead and incorporate that. If your sauce gets too thick, just add a little bit more milk. There we go, look at that. It's so nice and herby and flavorful looking. I'm gonna go ahead with a nice clean spoon and taste the sauce for seasoning. And it definitely needs a little bit more salt. So I'm gonna go in with just a few more dashes of salt. And a few more dashes of pepper. Not a bunch more pepper. It was pretty good and peppery. Just another little dash there of onion powder. I think it has plenty of parsley. So we'll go ahead and stir that in. And now I'm going to go ahead and add my frozen peas and tuna. So I'm going to add about half a bag of green peas here. We'll stir that around and get that incorporated in. You can add more or less. You can also easily double this recipe for a larger family. So as this bubbles away, the peas will cook up nicely. Maybe a few more peas in there. I really like peas. We'll add a few more in there. Want to keep stirring this. You definitely don't want it too high of heat. You really want to watch it so it doesn't stick to the bottom. And like I said, if it gets too thick, just add a little bit more milk. So now I'm going to go ahead and add my tuna. I'm going to break up that tuna, get that stirred throughout this gravy here, white sauce. I'll probably add a little bit more milk to this here in just a bit. But that is looking delicious. So I'm going to bring up the heat just to a low simmer and let this continue cooking so the flavors have a chance to develop and the peas have a chance to cook up a bit. So while this is cooking away, I'm going to go ahead now and make up my toast. So I'll come back when this is all ready to serve and I'll show you what it looks like as well as how we serve it up. So I let this simmer for about 5 to maybe 8 minutes more while I made my toast. And it is all ready to go. It looks delicious. It smells delicious. I've given it a little taste. It tastes wonderful. This meal is very budget friendly. You can make this meal. It should serve about 4 people. I did thin this out a little bit. You can thin it out by adding just a splash or two more milk, maybe about another 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup of milk. If it was looking a little thick, so I just thinned it out a little bit. Again, this meal will serve about 4 people along with 8 pieces of toast. Everybody can have a couple pieces of toast to pour their creamed tuna over. And you could also serve this over biscuits if that's what you have. And at the time of filming, this meal can still be made for around $5, maybe even a little bit less if you find things on sale. So again, a very budget-friendly and wonderful classic meal. Creamed tuna on toast. Okay, so I have my 2 pieces of toast here. I'm just using very inexpensive $1 a loaf store bread. I'm gonna go ahead and get a scoop here and just pour it right over the top of my toast. Just like so. And there you have it. That is creamed tuna over toast. I'm gonna go ahead and bring this out to my dining room and I'll give it a try. Here is our classic creamed tuna over toast. I'll go ahead now and give this a try. You can see lots of peas there. There's plenty of tuna in this. All of the spices make this taste delicious. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a try. This tastes delicious. I think even people who don't like tuna would enjoy this dinner. This is very much a classic comfort food type meal. It's warm and delicious, and you saw how quick it was to prepare. You can prepare this in definitely in under half an hour, I think. And again, for around $5. So this is definitely a wonderful meal. I hope everyone gives this a try. So this is our first tuna recipe in this video, and now I'll go ahead and share with you our next one. So here is my next tuna recipe. This is a pasta toss that I'm calling Tuna Florentine. I've got some linguine here that I will cook up. I've got two 5-ounce cans of tuna. If you have a larger can of tuna, you might be able to just use one, or if you want to double it, whatever you like. But I think 2 cans of this size tuna will be great. I've got a lemon here. I'm going to zest this and squeeze at least half the lemon into this recipe. I might use the whole, the juice of the whole lemon, just depends on how much juice it looks like I'll need. I've got some basil. I've got a small container here, a 15-ounce container of ricotta cheese. I've got 3 tablespoons of butter. I've got 2 cloves of garlic from my garden that I will go ahead and zest. And then I've got a big bag of spinach here. I will wash this up. I might not use this whole bag. I'm going to add as much as it looks like it'll need once it wilts down. So this is all you will need for this next recipe. It's pretty simple. We'll also be adding some of the pasta water to our sauce as well. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is heat up my water to begin cooking my linguine. And when that gets going, I'm going to start working on my sauce. And I forgot to mention that we'll also be adding some Parmesan cheese to this. We'll mix some in the sauce and save some to sprinkle on the top of the pasta once this is all ready. Okay, so my water is boiling and I'm going to go ahead and start cooking my linguine. As soon as I get this cooking, I'm also going to start assembling the rest of the ingredients in the other pan. My pasta is in the water here. It should take about, probably around 10 to 12 minutes to cook up. So I'll just keep a watch on that. I'm going to turn that down a little bit. It's kind of boiling pretty heavily. And then into my pan here, I'm going to go ahead and melt 3 tablespoons of butter into the pan here. And once that's melted, I will crush 2 cloves of garlic into the butter and let that saute around a little bit. So I'm adding my crushed garlic here. I'll saute that one and get the next one crushed in here as well. And my second one. I've got this on sort of a low-medium heat here. Just going to saute this around a little bit just to let that garlic cook up a bit. I'm going to turn that down a bit more. I'll turn it back up later. But right now I'm going to go ahead and drain my tuna and zest probably about a good tablespoon worth of zest of this lemon. I'll cut it in half so that I can add the juice as well. I've got my spices and ricotta standing by. I have cleaned and rinsed my spinach, and I'll probably remove some of these bigger stems, just like so. So I will do that now real quick while the garlic is sauteing in that butter, and keeping a close eye on that because we do not want to overcook the butter or the garlic. Okay, so our garlic is cooked up nicely with the butter. And now I'm going to go ahead and add a ladle full of the pasta water here, just like so. We're going to go ahead and use that, and we're going to bring that up to a little bit of a boil to steam our spinach. If I need to add more pasta water, I can always do that. So now I'm going to go ahead and add my spinach. Some of these long stems, I'm just going to kind of pull those out as I pop this in here. I don't like a lot of the stems. They can be a little woody at times. I'll take a look and I'll let you know how much of that bag that I go ahead and add to this. So I decided to add all of the spinach as I'm cooking it here. It's just wilting down pretty quickly, so I figured I could go ahead and use the whole bag. We really love spinach. I've left some of the stems on and taken away some of them. So as you can see, I'm just kind of cooking this down a little bit. I'll let this wilt for a couple minutes longer. Maybe I'll add the lid here just so that it can steam up a little bit quicker. So I'm going to let that cook down and let my pasta continue, and then I'll come back and we'll finish off the sauce here. Okay, that cooked down in practically less than a minute. So now I'm going to go ahead and add my ricotta, my 15-ounce container. I'm using a lower fat ricotta cheese just because that's what I'm trying tonight. You can use any kind of ricotta that you have. So let's go ahead and put that in there. I'm going to kind of break that up a little bit, and then here in a second I'll whisk that together as it kind of melts in with the spinach. You can see that's melting down nice and quickly. I'm going to go ahead and add in my zest from the one lemon. The lemon smells wonderful and it's going to really add a nice freshness to this sauce. We'll keep stirring that together, and as we're stirring it, it's cooking up nicely. The spinach is continuing to cook as well. I'm going to go ahead now and just add some basil to taste. Just going to add a few shakes in here. It's not really that much. It looks like a little bit, but it's not that much. And I will taste this at the end and perhaps add more if I want to. Forgot to mention salt and pepper, but I'm going to go ahead and add some pepper here. Not a lot, just a little bit. And then we'll also add a pinch of salt. Stir that together. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add my 2 cans of tuna right into the sauce here. And you want to break that up a little bit. So we'll go ahead and break up the tuna and stir that in with the cheesy mixture, the spinach creamy cheesy mixture here. This meal comes together really fast. I would definitely say prep your lemon zest beforehand, drain out your tuna, clean your spinach, because the pasta cooks up relatively quick, and you can see how fast this sauce is coming together. I'm going to go ahead now and add the juice from half this lemon. This part's a little tricky, the top one. I think I'll use the bottom half. There we go. And give that a stir. Now I'm going to go ahead and add in half a cup of the grated Parmesan and just stir that in. I'm going to go ahead and give my sauce a taste here. It's very tasty. You can really taste that lemon. I'm going to add a little bit more basil. I'm going to continue to let that cook down just a little bit. And the pasta is now cooked, so we're going to transfer the pasta right into this pan and toss it all together. So I have added all of my linguine here. Going to use my spatula here to toss this around. I might get out some tongs here in a minute. Just get that all mixed together so that we have our sauce evenly distributed throughout the pasta. This looks and smells delicious. And this meal came together so easily. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my heat now. I think it's cooked down enough. So there we go. That is my tuna Florentine pasta toss. That was so easy to make. Now I'm going to go ahead and get this plated up after I mix it up a little bit more, and I will show you what this looks like all served up. Okay, so here is my tuna Florentine pasta toss all served up. I've added a little bit of Parmesan to the top. It smells delicious. You can really smell the lemon and the garlic in this with a little bit of basil. I think it'll really brighten up the tuna quite a bit. Okay, so now to give this a try. And that is definitely a wonderful tasting meal. It really elevates the tuna. A simple can of tuna, the spinach and the lemon just really pair with that so nicely. All of the different cheeses in this, the ricotta. I really like the lower fat ricotta in this. It's not a really heavy pasta, which is a really nice change. A lot of times your creamy pastas will be a little bit on the heavy side, but that low-fat ricotta really is making this a nice light pasta dish. I definitely think that this is a wonderful way to use tuna in a really unique and yummy pasta dish. And you can see that came together in less than half an hour. Very quick dinner to make. So tuna Florentine pasta toss, definitely a wonderful recipe to make with your canned tuna. I also thought that in this tuna recipe video, I would include one of my favorite ways to make a tuna sandwich. So you'll need some tuna. Today I'm using the Wild Planet albacore wild tuna and some mayonnaise and some sweet pickle relish. I'm going to just mix that up. You can mix up the filling however you prefer to make your tuna sandwiches. Then you'll need bread, of course, and some margarine. These are going to be grilled tuna sandwiches, which is not a tuna melt. A tuna melt is usually an open-faced tuna sandwich with cheese. This does not have cheese, but it is a grilled sandwich. Sort of like a grilled cheese. You make it in the same way that you would make a grilled cheese, but instead of cheese, tuna fish. So I'm going to go ahead and get my tuna mixture mixed up here, and I'll show you how we prepare our grilled tuna sandwiches. So I have mixed up my tuna sandwich mixture here. Just a little scoop of sweet relish and a couple scoops of mayonnaise so that it would be nice and moist. And I also made sure to break up the tuna fish pretty well in here and stir that all together. Next, I prepared my bread by putting a thin layer of margarine on each piece. You can use softened butter as well, but today my butter was still pretty hard, so I went ahead and used margarine. And then you will take this over to the griddle and lay it butter side down on the griddle. So just like this, we have a griddle pan here, and we're putting the butter side or the margarine side down on this griddle here, and then I'm going to go ahead now and top this with my tuna fish filling. So I put a nice generous amount on each sandwich here. Now I'm going to place the top slice of bread with the butter side on the top so that when you flip it, it will be butter side down. So you want the butter to be what hits the griddle here. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn this on sort of a medium-high temperature and really keep my eye on it. I don't like them to burn. I like them to cook nice and evenly. So you want to avoid a really hot initial temperature because it's nice to let them sort of slowly heat all the way through. Of course, you'll flip them with a spatula when they're ready to flip and cook them on both sides until they're nice and toasty and golden. So I'm going to go ahead and get the heat on, and I'll come back and show you what they look like when I flip them. Okay, I flipped them over. You can see it's a nice light toast. I may flip them back over, get it a little bit darker right through here, but you don't want them to be super dark, so you want to watch that and flip them when they're just a nice golden and toasty color. So I'm going to go ahead, finish cooking these up, and then I'll serve them up and show you how they turned out. And here they are all served up. You can see I've cut them on the diagonal. It makes them a little bit easier to eat. You can see they're a beautiful golden brown toast on the sandwich there. I've served them with some sliced oranges and some of our favorite Trader Joe's kettle cooked olive oil potato chips here. So this is just a really nice and easy way to switch up a regular tuna fish sandwich and make it a grilled tuna fish sandwich. For my next tuna recipe, I am making tuna melt stuffed bell peppers. I've got these absolutely beautiful variegated bell peppers that I found at the grocery store, and I'm going to go ahead and make up a classic tuna melt filling, and we'll go ahead and fill our bell peppers with those. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is wash and core out the bell peppers and cut them in half. I'm going to put them in a pan with a little bit of water and get those started cooking and steaming while I prepare the rest of the ingredients. My bell peppers are prepped. You can see I've cut them in half, and they're in this little baking dish in just a little layer of water here, probably like ½ inch or something like that. I've got my oven preheated to 350 degrees, and I'm gonna go ahead and let these start cooking so that they don't take too much longer to cook once they're back in the oven filled up. So again, I'm gonna go ahead and put these in the oven at 350 for about 15 minutes or so, while I prep the rest of the ingredients. Okay, so now to mix up the filling for our tuna melt stuffed bell peppers, I've got 2 cans of tuna here. I've got 4 stalks of celery that I chopped up into tiny little pieces, as well as half of a small onion, also chopped up into pretty small little pieces. That one's a little bit big, but it'll break apart into the small little sections. So again, half of a small onion, finely chopped, as well as 4 stalks of celery, also cut pretty small. 2 cans of tuna. I've got some mayo and some dill pickle relish and cheese that we'll be adding and mixing together in this bowl. I've got my tuna emptied into this bowl. I went ahead and added a 1/3 can. These were only 5-ounce cans, and it looked like a little bit too small of an amount. So again, that is 3 cans of tuna, 5-ounce cans of tuna. And you can add how much you like, either 2 cans if you've got larger cans or 3 cans. And now I'm going to go ahead and add my onions and celery. I'll get the rest of that added in a minute. And then I'm going to go ahead and add about ½ a cup to a 3/4 of a cup. I'm going to start with ½ a cup of the light mayo and a heaping teaspoon of the dill relish. I've stirred in my onions and celery, and I've got about ½ a cup of light mayo and a heaping teaspoon of dill relish. And now I'm going to mix this together, and I'll add more mayo if I feel like it seems a little bit too dry. I did go ahead and add another 1/4 cup of the mayo, and you just want to add it until it looks like it's nice and moist and the mixture is coming together nicely. Now I'm going to add about a cup of shredded cheddar jack cheese. So my mixture is all mixed together, and I'm going to go ahead and let those bell peppers cook for about 10 more minutes so they can soften up and pre-cook a bit before I go ahead and fill them. I'm going to fill them with this mixture and then top them with cheese, and then we'll be returning them to the oven to bake. I took the bell peppers out of the oven after they cooked for about 15 minutes. I've given them a generous filling of the tuna salad mixture, and by the way, if you'd like this to be a little bit more zesty, you could add some pepper also to this mixture. I didn't today. Now I'm going to go ahead and top this with some cheese, and I'm going to return it to the oven that I have increased the temperature to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. So going to go ahead and top this with cheese, and I'll show you what that looks like. Then we'll get this back in a 400-degree oven. Here they are, topped with cheese. I've gone ahead and pressed the cheese down a little bit so it doesn't just fall right off. And now I'm going to go ahead and put these in a 400-degree oven, and I'll check them in about 15 minutes to see how they're doing. The idea is just to warm it through and melt the cheese and continue cooking the bell peppers a bit. These tuna melt bell peppers look absolutely delicious, and I'm excited to try them today. Here are my tuna melt stuffed bell peppers out of the oven, and they're all ready to eat. I'm going to go ahead and put one on a plate now and give it a try. Here it is, all served up, and now I'm going to go ahead and give it a try. Okay. And that is absolutely delicious. The tuna mixture is nice and warmed through. You can taste a little bit of cheesiness. The bell pepper is delicious with the tuna melt mixture. I think this makes an absolutely wonderful dinner and is a great way to use canned tuna. So that's my recipe for tuna melt stuffed bell peppers. So now I'm ready to make our last tuna recipe for this video. For this tuna recipe, I thought we would make a fun crescent tuna ring. I love using crescent roll. I think it's pretty fun. The ring shape sounded fun. You can also do something similar to this in a braid shape if you wanted to do that. I'm going to go ahead and use 2 cans of tuna. These are rather small cans at 7 ounces. I'm going to get those drained, and in a pan I'm going to use a cup of peas and carrots. I'm going to use some black pepper, couple tablespoons or so of mayonnaise. I wanted to use Dijon, but I only have brown mustard. It's pretty similar though. Again, a can of crescent rolls, a few drops of lemon juice, and then I've got a half of a red onion here that I'm going to finely dice. I probably won't use the whole half here. This is a pretty big half. And I've got some cheese. Also, you'll want to preheat the oven to 375 degrees, and I'm going to go ahead and start by getting my crescent ring all set up. So I've got a baking sheet here lined with parchment, and I've put a bowl in the center here. I might try to find a slightly smaller bowl, but what I do is I put the big end of each of the triangles around there and the pointy end out, so it almost looks like you're making a star. Then we'll go ahead and press those together, fill it, and roll it up, and I'll show you that process here in just a second. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my crescent rolls and get them laid out on my cookie sheet here. So here's my crescent roll dough all laid out to make a ring. So this is how it kind of looks. You see how it kind of looks like a star. It's a little bit misshapen. You can kind of move them around, and you'll want to overlap each of the corners and press those together just like so. And then you definitely want to remove your bowl, especially if it's plastic. It can't go in the oven, just like so. And so here we have our crescent dough ready to go. I'm going to go ahead now and stir together our filling. Of course, I'm going to work on this just a little bit more to make sure that it's all pressed together. We'll fill it kind of going around this direction. So if we want to spread these out just a little bit more so they hold a little bit more of the filling, you can do that. I have done these rings in the past using more than one pack, where I then go ahead and fill in here so it makes it a little bit denser. But tonight I'm just going to go ahead and use the 1 can. So here we have it all laid out. Now I'm going to make the filling. I have my 2 cans of tuna drained, opened up, and flaked into the bowl here. I've also gone ahead and steamed up this bag of organic peas and carrots just for a few minutes in the microwave, just long enough to get them started cooking. So that they're not too crunchy and undercooked, because I think this recipe will cook up pretty quickly. We're going to go ahead and add a cup of this to the recipe here. So there we have about a cup of peas and carrots. We're going to go ahead and add that. And like I said, I just lightly steamed those, and I'll save the rest of these for a side dish to a lunch or leftovers or something like that. Next, I'm going to go ahead and put a few little dashes of this lemon juice in here. I love adding a little lemon juice to tuna recipes. It just brightens it up. And next I'm going to add some of our brown mustard. Again, Dijon would be a good mustard to use too, but this will do just fine. You can see just shy of like a little teaspoon of that. I have my red onion diced up. This was a half of a really large onion here. I don't think I will add all of this. I'm going to start with probably half of this. There's about half the onion there. And now I'm going to go ahead and add a couple large tablespoons, heaping tablespoons of mayonnaise, and get this all stirred up, and we'll see how moist this looks. I'll also be adding some pepper after the mayonnaise, and when it's all mixed up, I'll be adding a little bit of cheese. I'm going to start with about that much mayonnaise there. It actually looks closer to probably like a 1/4 of a cup, And now I'm gonna go ahead and get everything mixed together. Okay, I've stirred this up and it looks like a little bit too dry for me, so I added another, just a rounded teaspoon of mayo there and some pepper, just a few shakes of regular black pepper. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get this stirred in, then I'll add my cheese. Next, I've added in a little bit more than half a cup of shredded cheese. This is the rustic cut. I think that a standard shredded cheese would do a little bit better in this recipe, but this is the one I have on hand today, so we're just gonna go ahead and use that. Again, just a little bit more than half a cup, and you can add more or less if you like. I didn't want it to be so cheesy that cheese was bubbling out of this recipe, so I'm just using this amount. So now I'm going to go ahead and get this stirred up, then we'll get it transferred to our crescent ring. Okay, so I've started transferring this to the ring here. You'll need to go ahead and add it in. Of course, you'll want a little bit of this ring showing through. You'll probably have to use your hands or the back of a spoon. And the idea is to fill it and then pull this over and tuck that in, just like so. And we'll go around the ring and do that with the rest of our mixture. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you how I roll it over into a ring. As you can see, I have put my mixture all around in a circle, just kind of mounded up like a ring. And then I'm going to take each crescent roll here and roll it over, and just kind of tuck it in like that. I have rolled over each of the triangles to make this ring here. So this is how it looks, all rolled up like a ring, and then of course it'll be served in slices. But we're gonna go ahead now and get this cooked up at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for probably around 15 minutes. I'm gonna check it at 10 minutes though to see how it's doing. So I'll be back to let you know how long our tuna ring took to cook up, and then we'll give it a try. Okay, so here is our tuna crescent ring out of the oven. It looks and smells really delicious. This took 15 minutes at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. And now I'm gonna go ahead and serve up a slice of tuna crescent ring. Tonight we're going to be having this for dinner with a salad and some baked sweet potatoes. So it cut very nicely. I just used my little spatula here to cut a piece out and serve it up. And now I'm going to go ahead and give this a try. That is a really wonderful flavor. I love the peas and the carrots and the onions in this tuna. The flavoring is really delicious. This was such an easy recipe to make up, and I think it's a really fun way to try to get your family to eat more tuna. I know sometimes my kids would be a little fussy about eating tuna and got tired of things like tuna casserole, so this would definitely be a really fun option to use that canned tuna. So that is my tuna crescent ring recipe. So now I'm going to go ahead and serve the rest of my plate up for dinner so you can see how we'll be having our tuna crescent ring for dinner tonight. Here is how I'm serving our tuna crescent ring tonight for dinner. We've got a chopped salad as well as some mashed up cooked yams with a little pat of butter. This looks like a really good dinner tonight, and I'm excited to have this. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at my tuna crescent ring recipe as well as the other 3 recipes for tuna that I shared in this video. I will go ahead and leave a link in the description box below for my tuna casserole recipe as well as for my Nana's tuna cheese buns, which are 2 more wonderful canned tuna recipes as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.